Every day, thousands of teenagers fall victim to a sinister online trap. They strike in the shadows of social media, manipulating, extorting, and preying on vulnerability. For too many teens, the shame is unbearable. This is The Killer in the DMs, a story of deception, destruction, and the digital predators who live in the dark corners of the internet, driving teenagers to suicide. Chapter 1: The Sextortion Epidemic. This is Jordan DeMay, a 17-year-old homecoming king whose life was destroyed in the space of 6 hours. It all started with a message, a simple DM on Instagram. On the other end was a girl he presumed. What Jordan couldn't have known was that he had just stepped into a deadly trap. The account did not belong to a teenage girl, but to two ruthless predators who were allegedly part of a Nigerian extortion ring operating under the fake persona of Danny Roberts. At first, they gained his trust. The conversation quickly turned flirtatious, then sexual. Eventually, they baited him, sending him explicit images, luring him into doing the same. But the moment they got what they wanted, the mask came off. The threats began. Pay up, or everyone he knew, his friends, his family, would see the photos. The shame, the fear, the unbearable weight of it all. They demanded $1,000. So Jordan panicked, scraped together over $300 and sent it. But it was never going to be enough. The next morning, Jordan had taken his life with a gun, leaving his family in tragedy. Another victim, another life lost by the cold, calculated cruelty of online predators who will never know the pain they left behind. But just how many more Jordans will it take before we wake up? This isn't just Jordan DeMay's story, it's a silent epidemic sweeping through the screens of teenagers across the country, one that's growing at an alarming rate. The FBI and child safety watchdog groups have declared sextortion as a crisis. In 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 26,718 reports of financial sextortion, up from 10,731 in 2022. This equates to approximately 73 new cases reported daily, with many more likely unreported due to victim shame or fear. But the most horrifying number is that at least 20 young lives were lost to suicide because of it. Already this year, reports of financial sextortion have exploded, more than double the cases last year. Initially, sextortion was about power, forcing young girls into producing more and more explicit images. Now, it's about money. Boys, often between 15 and 17, but sometimes as young as 9 years old, are being drained of their savings, handing over gift cards, desperate to make it stop. But it never stops. And it's not just real photos. Predators don't actually need consent. If a boy won't send an explicit image, they will create one, photoshopping his face onto someone else's body, threatening to spread it as if it were real. In the end, this is more than a crime. It's an epidemic. And the worst part, it's only getting worse. Chapter 2: The Financial Toll. In many cases, the money from sextortion flows in a fast, silent, and untraceable format. Financial institutions, credit card companies, and gift card providers are all scrambling, trying to block the transactions in real time. But the predators know how to stay ahead of the game, and the money keeps changing hands. When a suspect is flagged, law enforcement tries to alert the business, but by then, the damage is done. Today, financial sextortion has become a thriving industry, and the coldest part is that it's rooted in criminal networks that stretch across the globe, particularly out of West Africa, with Nigeria at the center. Meanwhile, these criminals are using technology to exploit teenagers at an unprecedented scale. Take, for instance, Emily, a 17-year-old teenager, too young to understand the weight of a single decision, yet old enough to be pressured into making it. Emily lived for art, pouring her soul into every piece she shared online. She wanted to be seen, to be heard, and someone was watching. At first, he seemed like a supporter, a fellow lover of art, someone who admired her work. Slowly, a compliment turned into a request turned into a demand, until one day, Emily sent photos she never would have shared otherwise. And just like that, the admiration turned to blackmail. She was trapped. Every message was a threat, and in the end, the weight of it all was too much to bear. Emily's story didn't end with the art she loved. It ended in silence, and a world that should have protected her never even saw it coming. In 2022, a shocking survey revealed that Americans were sending 1.8 million nudes every single day, 20 every second. This ruthless form of exploitation has drained millions from victims. In just the first 7 months of 2021, Americans lost about $8 million. Trapped and terrified, many teen victims of sextortion are left scrambling for ways to pay off their blackmailers. With no access to traditional banking, they turn to whatever they can: gift cards, peer-to-peer apps, even family-linked accounts. These alternative payment methods have become a lifeline for predators, fueling an underground economy of digital extortion. One of the most frequently exploited platforms is Cash App, which allows teens as young as 13 to use sponsored accounts monitored by parents. But scammers have found ways around these safeguards, turning the app into a breeding ground for sextortion payments. They demand victims purchase iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, or Steam cards, and then send the codes, granting instant access to the funds. The anonymity of transactions makes it easy for predators to collect their ransom without leaving a trace. Even traditional banking apps aren't safe. Zelle, integrated into many U.S. banks, lets teens with joint accounts send money instantly, straight from their banking accounts to the extortionists. And once the funds are transferred, there is no reversing it. And now, cryptocurrency. While less common than gift cards, crypto payments are rapidly becoming a preferred method, especially in international scams. Once the ransom is paid in crypto, it can be laundered across multiple accounts, making it nearly impossible to trace. Many peer-to-peer payment apps, including Cash App and Venmo, fail to enforce strong default protections against sending money to strangers. Moreover, many teens can bypass parental controls, allowing scammers to manipulate them with ease. Unlike traditional credit cards, which provide fraud protection under laws like the Fair Credit Billing Act, these apps offer no safety net. Fraudulent transactions are often labeled as authorized, meaning victims have little to no recourse. Once the money is gone, it's gone for good. Eventually, the lack of protections isn't just enabling these crimes, it's encouraging them. Chapter 3: The Psychological Impact. In the dark world of online exploitation, one truth remains disturbingly overlooked. The victim's own mind may hold the key to their targeting. Personality traits, emotional vulnerabilities, and even sexual desires aren't just incidental factors. They could be the very triggers that predators exploit. And yet, despite their undeniable link to sextortion, these psychological elements have been largely ignored. Trapped in a cycle of fear, some victims go to extreme lengths to escape, disappearing from social media, deleting their online presence, even uprooting their entire lives just to avoid the threat of exposure. But the nightmare doesn't always end there. Between October 2021 and March 2023, at least 20 suicides were linked to financial sextortion schemes targeting minors. Others spiral into depression, self-harm, and isolation, terrified that the images will surface, that their futures, college, military, careers, will be ripped away. Without real customer protections, young victims aren't just left emotionally devastated, they are also financially ruined. But how does a random stranger get to manipulate these young minds? You see, scammers are not reckless criminals lurking in the dark corners of the internet. They are calculated manipulators who know how to gain trust. They don't come off as threatening or suspicious. Instead, they pose as peers, confidants, even potential romantic partners. They know what you like and mirror your personality, making you feel seen, heard, and understood. And just when you start to feel comfortable, when your guard is finally down, that's when they strike. The moment explicit content is shared, the game changes instantly. The friendly stranger now reveals their true face, a ruthless extortionist. They send you a cold message, one that stops your heart. If you don't pay, everyone will see this, your family and friends. Suddenly, you are no longer in control. The scammer is, and they want your money fast. They demand payment, sometimes small at first, just to test your fear. One payment turns into 2, then 3, then an endless cycle of blackmail, each threat more terrifying than the last. Your worst nightmare is in the palm of their hands, and here's the brutal truth. They won't stop until they bleed you dry. Meanwhile, many victims don't come forward, not because they don't want to, but because they're trapped in shame and fear. Society often blames them instead of the criminals, and that silence, it's exactly what scammers rely on. Chapter 4. Prevention. In the digital age, one wrong move can turn your private life into a public tragedy. Protecting yourself from sextortion starts with understanding the risks, especially on online dating platforms. Moreover, sending explicit photos or videos to strangers is like handing a loaded weapon to someone you barely know. But the danger doesn't stop there. Even in new relationships, trust is fragile. While sexting might bring couples closer, it's not always good in the end. Until trust is solid, sharing intimate material online is like playing with fire. One betrayal, one hack, and your privacy could be gone forever. Just like this young kid who became a victim, but this time it was fake. Mateo was just 15, a boy from Brazil with a passion for gaming, for escaping into virtual worlds where he could be anyone, do anything. Like so many teenagers, Mateo found solace in the online gaming community. No judgment, no pressure, just the game. He connected with players from all over the world, forming bonds over late-night matches and shared victories. One player in particular stood out, a friend who seemed to get him, someone who laughed at his jokes, cheered him on, and always had his back. What Mateo didn't know was that his friend wasn't who they claimed to be. It started innocently, weeks of private chatting, messages filled with jokes and trust-building conversations. Slowly, the predator guided the relationship into more personal territory. And then came the request. For a 15-year-old who felt like he had finally found a real friend, saying no wasn't easy. But even when he refused, the tone changed. The friendly messages disappeared, replaced with threats, demands, terror. The blackmailer threatened to release fake nudes that was engineered using AI. The predator knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't need physical force. The fear was enough. Mateo did what so many victims do. He stayed silent. He obeyed. He gave in to the demands, hoping the nightmare would end. But it never did. The more he complied, the more they wanted, and the threats never stopped. One night, the pressure became too much. The messages wouldn't stop. The threats grew darker, and in his mind, there was no escape. Mateo made a choice no child should ever be forced to make. At just 15 years old, he took his own life. While this tragic story of Mateo is very disheartening, it has become the reality of many young victims of sextortion. Every day, young people log into their favorite apps, completely unaware that one wrong move could cost them everything. We teach kids about stranger danger in the real world, but when it comes to the digital world, no one bats an eye. Why aren't we having this conversation? No one tells young people the hard truth. Once you send that photo, you lose control over it forever. We live in an age where one click can ruin a life, and yet society shies away from the discussion, pretending it's not happening until it's too late. For those caught in the web of sextortion, the first instinct is panic. Victims think they have only two choices: pay up or be exposed. But the truth is, giving in to demands only feeds the beast. It never stops. The only way out is to cut all communication immediately. No explanations, no negotiations, nothing. No amount of money will make it stop. Block the predator, but don't delete the evidence. It can be used to bring them down. Then report right away. Authorities, cybercrime units, even social media platforms, someone needs to know. Because the moment a victim stays silent, the predator wins. But many victims don't report because they're terrified of judgment, of being blamed. Let's be clear, victims are not the problem. Predators are. The real failure? Families that don't talk, schools that don't educate, a society that shames instead of supports. We need safe spaces where victims can come forward without fear. Counseling, hotlines, trusted adults who won't judge but listen. Because the most dangerous thing isn't just the scammer, it's the silence that lets them keep winning. We have spent too long looking the other way, pretending sextortion isn't happening. But now, the question isn't whether we can stop it, it's whether we are willing to. In the long run, sextortion is a silent predator claiming young lives daily. Awareness, education, and open dialogue are our strongest defenses. Together, we can stop this epidemic. If you or someone you know is a victim of sextortion, seek help immediately. Contact local authorities, reach out to trusted individuals, and utilize available resources to support victims and prevent further tragedies.